So first of all, my apologies. Uh, this goes for the do-it-yourself fishing hooks and the lure. We've had nothing but sunny, hot, over 30 plus to 40 Celsius weather. And the one day I decided to set everything up and to do the two quick videos, bam, we have a front move through. Again, no rain or anything, just lots of wind. And so I've tried to chop a bunch of that out. It's just, I'm sorry about the wind, folks. I use my Samsung camera on a tripod to do all my videoing. As I've said before, I do not do this professionally. I do not do this for hits and stuff. I do it so that hopefully I'm helping other people. And so it is what it is. I apologize for it. About through part 2 on the making of the soft-bodied lures, it passed and no more wind. But until then, I apologize ahead of time. All right, this is my dilemma here. If I want a eagle claw, gold colored, long shank, number 10 crappie hook, can't get them here, not in Germany. You have to order them online. But even Amazon.de doesn't cover the long shanks. They'll get maybe to a 4 or a 6, but definitely not an 8 or a 10. And as you get into the smaller ones, again, the shanks are extremely small. Case in point, not all hooks are created equal. There is actually, contrary to a lot of people's belief, and to mine at one point, there is no standard. That is a standard size 8 hook. However, this one as well is a size 8 hook, different company. This one's bigger, thicker metal, wider gap. What the F, people? Give me a friggin' standard, okay? These things can vary anywhere from 0.02 to 0.1 millimeters in gap difference. Even though it's the same bloody hook size, supposedly, just made by different companies. The material that they use, the diameter of the wire that they use, again, can be different. So I got tired of wanting to take and buy a size 10 hook that I'm used to, and getting one of these big gap things, even though it says it's a size 10 normal. And also you'll notice the length of the shank here is extremely small. Now, last weekend I was fishing. I was using one of these. I was fishing for small cyprinids. It's going to bring a couple home, put them onto the plate. I wound up tying into about a 30-pound beast. Did not have the right line for that. Did not have the right leader material. Definitely not the right hook size. By the time I got it in, it had sucked in the boilies, and even though the knotless knot hair rig had done its job, it was caught down in his gills. And that simply, there was not enough shank. But when you try to go get a long shank here in Germany, they're almost impossible to find once you get below a size 4. And the ones that you do find are not light wire crappie style hooks. They're hardened and enameled steel hooks. So that if I'm fishing and he gets me into some brush, that thing is not going to straighten out. So, you know, if that hook had been able to straighten out, that would have released that fish, because I use barbless hooks. I got thinking about this as to, I could order them, Amazon.com. I have an Amazon account. We have Prime. All the fun things, you know, that you younger kids do that us old people are not supposed to know about. But to get a 10 count of Eagle Claw fine wire crappie hooks, the package for 10, excuse me, the package for 10 would cost me about $5. Not bad. However, because of our wonderful El Presidento, or Presidente, or King, or whatever he wants to call himself lately, with what's going on, you know those things about how tariffs don't affect you, it affects the companies? Yeah, right. To ship a $5 10-pack of hooks will cost me an additional $10 to $20 because of the tariffs. Do you think that that company is footing that bill? Heck no, we are. So I decided to do away with all of that and make my own hooks. You heard me. Make my own hooks to my standard. So instead of getting these hooks that have no give to them, that will snap my leaders and so on before they give, leaving possibly a hook in a fish's mouth or whatever, I decided to make my own. So I went out and got myself some 0.6 millimeter spring tempered stainless steel. Now, of course, the larger the hook size, the thicker the metal. But I needed some in about a size 10. Size 10, size 12, size 14. This is about the right gauge for it. Once you start going to a 6, or you go to an 8 and a 6, I would go up at least to a 9, 0.9 millimeter, and a size 4 at least up to a 1 millimeter thickness of this stuff. But so the next thing I was like, well, how do I gauge that I'm making them the right size? So I went and got me a little package of each. Didn't care so much as to what they were, more so as I got them all from the same company and in sizes from a size 4 down to a size 16. Same company, same size wire, same gauge measurements. So I don't have a big gap fluctuation, literally gap between the point and the shank. So this would be their size 8. This would be the other company's size 8. Oops, there we go. You notice it is definitely larger. This thing is almost a size 6. I measured the gap. It's almost a size 6. It's just a few millimeters off. So I get the same company. So I'm using the same metal, the same design. These are barbless. This is an 8. This is a 10. I checked the diameter of the wire. Correct. It's about a 0.6 to a 0.6265. So I got my spring tempered stainless, And the first thing I did was I made myself a block. Okay, size 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 12, 14, 16. And this one is my little loop that I used to make my eyelet. When making the eyelet, be very sure that that thing is clean and crimped tight against the shank. Otherwise, you're going to pull that line through there and it's going to cut it. All right? However, to give you an idea, there we go. You will notice that shank is much longer. Okay? I'm holding it right at the eyes. So I can gauge the length of my shank. So I make my eyelet. Then I do my wrap. For these, they're number 10s. So I do my wrap around my number 10 to make sure I've got my gauge right. I would then, with a hammer, slightly flatten the material from the cross piece where the, hang on. I would flatten it from where the tip meets the shank that way. I just lightly hammer this, just flatten it just a little bit. That's going to strengthen it and keep it from bending out too easily. All right, so we have that. Then all I had to do is take my Dremel with a small diamond polishing wheel and make myself my point. Boom, we're done. That's it. A long shanked number 10 light spring stainless wire hook. And I can make them anywhere from a size 4 all the way down to a size 16. And as I said, that's my wrap right here, a much smaller piece of wire that I use to do my my eyelet. That's how simple it is. If I had wanted to put a barb on this, I could have flattened this tip a little bit more and then used a very small, can't think of the English word for it now, chisel. Put the ding into it and that would have flared out my barb. And then I could have cleaned it up. That simple. I can gauge the thickness of my wire to where I want to fish. For the fish that I'm fishing, I can gauge the length of my shank, the size of my eye hole, everything from this. Just by making this little jig rig here. And that's just a spare piece of wood. I would drill a hole about a 0.5 millimeter smaller than the base that I'm driving into it. Drill a hole, tap it in. These things are secure. They're not going anywhere. No glue, no nothing. So let's say I want to make a, let's say I'm going fishing for bait. So we're going to do a size 16. Now the first thing I want to do is get that out of the way, is I want to make my eyelet. So I've got my wire, bring my eyelet down, take my pliers, and all I'm going to do, let me adjust this. I've got a little bit of tail left here, and that's intentional. What I want to do now is set the bend of the eye. There we go. And now I'm simply going to go over to my Dremel and clip this little piece off and squeeze it closed. Give me a second. I use my little diamond wheel to clean that up. I'm just going to put it back over my normally, this is fairly new for me, but normally what I would do is in the wintertime, when I don't do a lot of fishing, I just make me up a whole batch of these of different sizes. That's my plan anyway. Alright, now, the next thing that irks me about a hook is hooks are designed for right-handed people. And by this what I mean is you come up the shank and then it goes around so that the opening is on this side. So if I'm holding it and I'm trying to wrap as a left-handed person, I'm putting it right in that groove where it's going to pull and cut it. So what I have to do is hold it, and for me I'm doing it backwards, which is a pain in the dupa. But if I'm making my own, I can determine which way I want that to bend based off the bend of my hook eye. So I can turn it into a left-handed hook. Now we're going to go for bait fish. So I want this shank a little long. Make sure that eye is closed. And then what I'm going to do is turn this and bend the hook toward where the spiral ends. That way when I'm holding that hook this way and I'm wrapping left-handed, the end of the spiral for the eye is on the inside and not the outside of my hand. Then I'll take this over to my small anvil. I'm going to flatten this a little bit and put the tip on it, and I'll be right back. So that's done. You want it just a little flat, right in that curve. That strengthens it up. You make it too flat and it'll just a slight, just enough to keep the rounding in it, but it's just a little flat on each side. Then all I have to do is straighten my bend up, because when you hammer it, it's going to want to flatten a little. Check it. We're almost on the mark. I don't like my hooks having that counter bend in them, so I always straighten that up. But then there you go. Now when I hold this in my right hand to do my wrap, that eyelet spins this way and ends over here. So it'll come spin this way and end over here. So by left-handed, I'm now naturally, I can do my hooks and so on with my dominant hand. And there you go, a size 16 long shank, light wire stainless spring hook. And you can do this for any sizes that you want. Just be sure to match the wire size to your hook size. And that's about it. Oh, also this comes in real handy if you get your hooks mixed up. I can come in and size my hooks. So I can put them back into the right box should they get mixed up.